Large alcohol companies are still overly reliant on what made them successful in the last 50 years. Circana's Senior VP of Global Thought Leadership and Strategic Insights, Ananda Roy, speaks to Global Drinks Intel. Innovation within the category isn't getting more sales and isn't commanding a premium. That's not happening anymore, and that's bad news for the category. Source: drinksintel.com. Ollie Wehring, March 14, 2025. Last month at the Wine Paris trade show, Ananda Roy opened proceedings with a presentation, Wine and Spirits, New Horizons in a Changing World. Following his time on stage, Global Drinks Intel editor Ollie Wehring sat down with the VP of Global Thought Leadership and Strategic Insights at Circana to hear more of his thoughts on the future for beverage alcohol. Based on the current trading environment, there's a sense that beverage alcohol is at a crossroads today. That's very much the case for the alcohol category. There's an established doom and gloom narrative today on volume and how consumers are changing, but it's equally as much of an opportunity. All the choices a brand owner, big or small, can take at the moment are strategic to go down the growth path. If the choice you make is to do nothing, then there's a cost to that. The category rules are changing, and so are the kinds of products and innovation that consumers are looking for. If you're going to adhere to the rules that made the category successful in the past, then that's not a call to the future. There are 6 distinct opportunities for growth. You don't have to do all 6, but they're critical to the next phase of growth. What's convinced you that the cyclical trends of the past aren't applicable now? First of all, the fundamental attitude to alcohol and consumption in the younger LDA generation is changing. When we look at the consumption figures for the category as a whole, we saw a lot of repertoire behavior amongst younger consumers, where they were trying many different products. Gradually, they would find their taste and maintain their loyalty. Over the last 100 years, we've talked about generational shifts. For this generation, however, we're seeing a demand shift. We've got an entire group of young people who are rejecting the category. They're either not drinking alcohol at all, or if they are, they're drinking far less. For the first time, they have a full range of innovative options for the same occasion, with the same elements of taste, sustainability, and experience. So they're rejecting the traditional category codes for wine and spirits. That's very different to what we've seen before. This group of consumers looks small today, but will become mainstream in the next 10 or 15 years. So it's a very fundamental shift in consumption. How easy is it to work out how this will play out in the medium to longer term? There's a very clear trend in per capita consumption. Another thing is, from retail sales data, there are fewer new product launches now, and they're not proving capable of getting the incremental volume, nor are they commanding a premium. Typically, consumers expect to pay a little bit more for a new product because there's something special about it. But we're finding with new innovation launches, they're no longer getting that premium. Both of these things suggest that the category is at risk of looking like the tobacco category in the early 2000s. There's an opportunity here to learn lessons from that and choose different options. Otherwise, you're heading into a situation where your biggest markets have aging populations, products are going to get increasingly commodified, you're going to have to promote even more than today, just to maintain volume, and regulation, taxes, and tariffs are going to rise. These are all things that you don't want a category to have. Bear in mind that the moderation language used by Tobacco Back then is wasted on younger LDA alcohol consumers. They don't need to be told to moderate because they're already drinking less, and they're drinking differently. Do you feel our industry is well placed to be consumer-led? That's one of the reasons why the industry is struggling to adapt to the changing environment. It's been exceptionally good at creating experiences, rituals, and innovative products that excite consumers. The category understands consumers very well. But now, it's very hard for them to accept that for the first time, consumers are rejecting their brands, their messaging, and their innovation. Everything that's made brands successful for the last 60 years is being rejected by the consumer, and they're moving to something that's alternative. It's hard for big brands to come to terms with that fact. I think that's the reason why a lot of folks are in denial. If you think no and low alcohol is a small trend that won't last, our point is that it's not a trend, it's reality. The category's biggest strength is now becoming its biggest barrier. They're having to move to a different horizon, and they're finding it very difficult to do so. With ESG and D&I, are consumers saying one thing and doing another? When we do our research with consumers, it's very clear that given a choice between a sustainable product and something that's less sustainable, they will always go for the former. However, there are two constraints. One is that these products are simply not available to buy on shelf. The second is that when they are available, they're at a 20% to 30% premium. So you're actually not satisfying the demand of a consumer segment, particularly during a cost of living crisis. At the moment, it's a bit chicken and egg. If premium pricing became more normalized, and if sustainability cues reflected the consumer need, that's when sustainability becomes a choice and purchase driver. Ultimately, the challenge is not the consumer, it's the retailers. In Europe, for example, they've signed up to the European Commission's Eco-Design for Sustainable Products regulation, which requires ingredient sourcing and traceability and a net zero direction of travel. There are financial penalties for not reaching certain targets. So the retailers are in a non-negotiable situation with sustainability. How do you see the weight loss drug phenomenon impacting alcohol? We're already seeing the likes of Ozempic being used by a much wider group of mainstream consumers for more than just weight reduction. The prevalence of Ozempic is only going to grow. Ozempic has a direct impact on the consumption of alcohol. These consumers want an alcoholic beverage that is protein agnostic and doesn't cause bloating. This is another opportunity for a forward-looking liquor brand to think about. Which category is best placed to capitalize? I think spirits-based RTDs, lower alcohol content, low sugar. Then there's low and no alcohol. These are the two segments that can thrive in an Ozempic world. Is the alcohol industry overanalyzing the challenges and panicking unnecessarily? I'm a strategist by training, and I look at a whole range of variables. For the first time, I'm seeing a perfect storm developing. The things that have made the category very successful for the last 60 years are losing their relevance. At the same time, what consumers value is changing. Their needs, their occasions, and the kinds of products they're drinking. Adjacent to the category, there's a range of alternative options. We didn't have these options in the past. Then there's a whole range of structural changes coming. Taxation and regulation, for example. We've never had all of these variables at one point in time. In the history of the alcohol category, there have been peaks and troughs. If you read the numbers very literally, you could say that the decline in the category is just a return to normal following the pandemic. But then, what you're not seeing is how the consumer is changing significantly. The 18 to 25-year-old consumers today have a very different attitude to alcohol. It's a different environment. Innovation within the category isn't getting more sales and isn't commanding a premium. That's not happening anymore, and that's bad news for the category. What product would you bring to market if you weren't doing what you currently do? If I was starting an alcoholic product, I wouldn't invest in trying to be a big brand through advertising and promotion. I would try to work very closely with retailers, use first-party consumption data that never existed before to identify the shopper segments that are buying alcoholic products. Then, I'd get into the kitchen and use that information to formulate an interesting product. It would probably have an ABV of 5% or less, be in a convenient packaging format, and have a more globalized taste profile. Consumers today are discovering unique flavors and tastes from other parts of the world. It could even be a product that could be drunk by yourself. I would create a product for that kind of category. There is still scope for alcohol products, but by different product development means. By doing that, even a small company today can create demand for a successful alcoholic product. Will there still be a market for high ABV beverages in the future? There will be, but it's going to be increasingly concentrated in certain geographies, based around aging populations. The risk is that it's going to be very competitive and that the pricing will get modified. You won't be able to get the same premiums as today. There will still be a place for big brands, but not by playing the old game. I don't think the large alcohol companies are embracing the new opportunities in the category. They're still overly reliant on what made them successful in the last 40 or 50 years. They aren't showing an openness to a changing consumer and retail environment in a way that they did in the past. They're being repositioned by a category that's developing without them. That surprises me. What is holding them back?